Spring is starting at the Home Depot, and we're bringing you low prices guaranteed so you can wake up your yard this season. Shape up your lawn with top brand outdoor power tools like this Ryobi 40-volt mower with up to 50 minutes of runtime. Bring in a splash of color with spring blooms and fresh plants from the Home Depot Garden Center. Then refresh your garden beds and keep them clear of weeds with Vigoro mulch, 3 bags for $10. Start your spring with low prices guaranteed only at the Home Depot. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Ugh, you said you were over him, but his hoodie is still in your rotation. It's time. Grab your phone, snap a few pics, and sell it on Depop. Listed in minutes with no selling fees. And just like that, a guy 500 miles away just paid full price for your closure. And right on cue.
Hey, still got my hoodie?
Nope. But I've got tonight's dinner paid for. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste. List now with no selling fees. Payment processing fees and boosting fees still apply. See website for details.
Hello and welcome back to Off the Record on Tudor's Dynasty and Beyond. I'm Rebecca Larson.
And I'm Amy McElroy.
And guess what day it is? It's Sunday! Our favorite day of the week, and a recent poll that I put out that people really like my Thursday and Sunday episodes, but hate Tuesday episodes.
Okay.
Nobody voted for Tuesday. Everybody voted for Thursday and Sunday.
I don't think that means they hate them.
In fairness, I did ask.
Just not their preference.
Yes, I did ask which was their favorite. So,
to be fair, it's hard to get a vote against Matt Lewis. So
yeah, it is. It is.
I will take the loss with grace.
Yeah, you know what? I've been having a lot of fun with Matt Lewis, kind of going through chronologically the Plantagenets, and the next recording I do with him is going to be about Henry III, and we've already recorded another one previously on the King John and the daughters of Henry II. So that was a really fun one to do.
Be fun.
Yeah. I always love medieval stuff, so it's fun to be able to talk to somebody who actually knows a lot about medieval history. But anyway, this is Off the Record, and we're doing so many fun different episodes. And last week we did What If Thomas More Chose Exile Over Execution?
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of surprised at how popular that episode was. I don't think I expected it to get as many comments as it did. So what are people saying?
So people, quite a few comments. So Douglas said, I believe Moore once said it was not dangerous to tell a king what he could not do. The danger was when a king discovered what he could do.
Yep.
Caroline says, this was a really great episode. I absolutely love this comment, by the way. I don't know why, but the way you discussed Erasmus and Moore, I kept thinking of Hamilton, the musical, and the man. Erasmus and Moore were writing like they were running out of time. Moore was a lawyer, like Hamilton. They were all highly impactful in government management, and yet many people know Hamilton and Moore for their deaths, not their incredible lives. Then it says, well done. Now I want a musical about Erasmus and Moore. Musmore, the musical. I love it. Someone needs to do that.
Yeah, I feel like I know some people who have written musicals before. Maybe I should reach out to them and say, "Are you?" They probably go, "Nobody would go to that musical."
I would, and I'm pretty sure Caroline would.
Okay, it's sold out. The smallest theater ever.
Yeah. Oh, you'll like this name. History, Dragons and Magic.
Oh, I love dragons. We were just talking about this.
Says, absolutely cackling at Amy thinking Henry's mum would be scarier than God.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Douglas also says, I believe Moore would have lived like Erasmus, a guest in many courts. So that's a good assumption, I think.
Yeah.
Laurie says, another thought-provoking episode. I agree that being a martyr and eventually a saint gives Moore a higher status than he would if he'd have lived. though certainly would likely have written more insightful works and could definitely have an impact on society. So, yeah.
These are good comments.
And then Laura says, unfortunately, I think it's the manner of his death that impels historians. I completely agree. If Moore had had the opportunity to flee, I think he had too much integrity to do so. Even if he'd known remaining would mean his death, I believe his inner moral compass would not have allowed him to deviate from what he believed to be right. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, I think you said that during the episode too.
Yeah. And then another contradiction of Henry VIII. He remained Catholic but appointed two radical Protestants, John Cheek and Richard Cox, as tutors.
Yeah,
So,
he was confused. He was a confused man.
both of which I've been researching. So that's
Yes.
fun. And then this is not a nice comment, but I'm going to read it anyway, just so people are aware of what sometimes gets aimed at us that isn't so nice. So Diana says, it starts off nice. I love the content and the shared information, but many times I've stopped listening early because I can't take the constant giggles and laughs from Rebecca. Please stop. So I'd just like to say that this is meant to be fun. If we weren't laughing, we're doing something seriously wrong and would be very bored and should probably stop doing these episodes. So if that happens, I'll probably won't be here.
Could you imagine if I didn't laugh? Like, you guys, this is who I am. You are seeing 100% authentic Rebecca. This is not a show. This is who I am in real life. And you know what? I laugh easily. I'm happy. This is I think I commented on that too and said I'm not going to apologize. Like
Yeah.
this is who I am. Telling me to stop laughing is like telling me to stop breathing.
And I think, it's safe to say that we spend so much time researching whatever. This is our chance to talk about a subject that we love in a fun way.
Yeah.
So, it's not all heads in books and archives and all of that kind of stuff. We have to have a way to have fun with it.
That's
This is it.
If you want more serious episodes, then listen on Tuesdays only. Don't listen on Thursdays. Don't listen on Sundays. Just listen on Tuesdays. Those are the more serious academic type interviews that I do. These are the fun ones. This is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to have a show where I can laugh and joke about history and yet still teach people about history and do myth busting and just make it more fun for everyone.
Yeah. And we have fun. So,
yeah, obviously I do.
And I will say that is a minority. Most of the comments are absolutely lovely. And as everyone knows, I do read them and I do like to read them. So keep the comments coming.
Yes, please do. And this week we have another fun episode, like always, because this is what we do over here. And this week, Amy came up with the idea for another marriage edition. Yeah, I love the marriage editions as long as we can find a theme. Otherwise, it's like,
I wish you wouldn't tell people it was me in case they all hate it.
I'm giving you credit.
But if they all hate it, that's okay. They don't need to know it was me.
But if I hated it, I wouldn't give you credit. I would just say, here's the topic for today. But I thought it was
fair. That's fair. Okay.
I think this is a great topic. I actually posted on social media asking for suggestions, and you guys had no idea that this is why I was doing it, because part of me was curious to see what you were going to say, and the other part needed some ideas.
She was being sneaky.
I was being sneaky. I feel like if I had said this is for the podcast, less people would have responded. So by going on social media and saying what was the most disastrous Tudor or Elizabethan marriage, I got a lot of comments, a lot.
I'm not surprised. There's probably quite a lot of marriages that could fit into that.
Most of them were Henry VIII and all of his wives.
Of course.
A lot.
Wouldn't expect anything less.
No, I mean, obviously, that is the most obvious. Henry
Yeah.
VIII and Anne Boleyn was another
Mhm.
big one because that one was quite disastrous
Yeah.
for you
Especially
know,
for her.
yeah, definitely. But we were kind of like looking outside of
Yeah.
Henry VIII because to me that like I said, that's the obvious one. So
Mhm.
I think I'm going to start on this one if that's okay.
Of course it is. Go for it.
Can I please?
No.
I thought probably if we're looking at good marriages in the Tudors, I would say probably one of the best and most successful marriages was Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. I mean,
Yes.
eh, that marriage combined the two houses of York and Lancaster to end the Wars of the Roses, essentially. I don't know
Yep.
that it technically did right away, but them coming together, it wasn't a love match. I would love to say that it was, but they were married for political
Yep.
reasons, yet they still found a way to make it work. And, they got married and they had Arthur like less than a year later. I love that story, by the way. And then they had several other children, right? So we know
Yeah.
Arthur and Margaret and Henry and Mary. And if we just look at the reign of Henry VII with Elizabeth by his side, do you ever hear of any scandal between the two of them?
No.
Nothing. Like she was the perfect queen consort. And I
Absolutely.
don't know if that's just because she respected her position as queen consort or if it was how she was raised by her mother and grandmother maybe, or if it was the influence of Margaret Beaufort in the household.
I think it's probably a bit of everything. Like you can't deny her upbringing. And obviously she went through some horrific times before she
Yeah.
got there.
Very.
Um, but she did have an excellent upbringing. So I think it probably is a mixture of all of that. She knew what was expected of her.
Yeah.
Um, but then obviously she did have Margaret Beaufort, who also knew what was expected of a queen. So yeah, and I think, I would like to think that Henry was kind to her. There's no reason to say that he wasn't. So I think if she had any concerns, they probably went away quite quickly. I'm not going to say in days, because obviously they didn't know each other. But yeah, I'd say that's the most successful marriage.
I always think about her and the princes in the tower and what happened to them and Perkin Warbeck and was he or wasn't he her brother?
Mhm.
And if he was, which sometimes I like to think that he was, what an uncomfortable situation for
Yeah.
her to be in. And yet, of course, she was loyal to her husband and to the family that she had created with him. And I think that shows a good marriage too, because if she thought Perkin was her brother, she could have formed rebellions and, taken down her husband. But why would she do that when she's got children involved?
Yeah, because essentially, if Perkin Warbeck was her brother, if she starts a rebellion or supports a rebellion to take her husband down, she's also taken her kids out because, there's always going to be that threat of if their rebellion was successful, her kids.
Yeah.
So is her brother just gonna leave her children be? Possibly, but they're
Mm,
a threat.
right. Yep. And it makes me wonder too, if Perkin was her brother, had he considered that when he came to England to try to take the throne back? Had he thought about the fact that his sister now had heirs and what that would do to her? And did he think she was just going to like open the doors to the palace and say, "Here's your throne, brother"?
It's probably easy for him to, if he was him, to think, it's my sister, I'm not going to hurt her, I'm not going to hurt my nieces and nephews. But once you're on the throne and your own throne is threatened, then it becomes a different matter, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
completely.
I doubt he ever intended, like, oh, I'm going to go and steal the throne off my sister and her kids,
Mhm.
and then, either lock them up or do whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think they thought that far ahead.
I don't think they did.
I
They
think
were,
it was just need to get the throne.
yeah. Yep. I was going to make a completely sexist remark there about men, but I'm not going to do it now. I think you can imagine where I was going
Yeah.
with that. One of the other things I think about when I think of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York is we really honestly don't have any reports of any scandal around
No.
their marriage. Did he or didn't he take mistresses? I think the consensus is that he did not. There were the rumors about Catherine Gordon, the wife of Perkin
Mhm.
Warbeck, but I guess I would like to think that he was loyal to his wife throughout their entire marriage. And, when she died, he clearly mourned her.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, he's the King of England. If he had a mistress, there was nothing wrong with it at the time. Like nobody would blink an eye. Elizabeth of York probably wouldn't like it, but she would know better. She would turn a blind eye. But it'd likely be recorded somewhere. Someone would know. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't just go away. You can't hide a mistress when you're the king. It's
Right.
very, very well, you possibly could, but it's going to be very, very difficult. So I'd agree. I don't think he did. I
Yeah.
think he was loyal.
And then also the added complication of if there was a child born of that affair, then surely we would have heard something about the
Yeah,
illegitimate son or daughter. Well, if it was a son, for sure we would have heard about
yeah,
it, which Henry VIII then would have killed him. So, right? Is that not, is that, that's exactly what would have happened. Like Henry VII would have died. Henry VIII came to the throne. He would have been like, oh, I have this illegitimate brother.
yeah,
Maybe he's older than Henry too, and that would be a threat. We know how Henry reacted. We just did an
mhm,
episode, and nobody was
yeah,
safe. Nobody,
absolutely.
except his son, Edward the Sixth,
Yeah,
right?
and Henry Cavill.
And Henry Cavill. I love that he's just Henry Cavill now. Charles Brandon is Henry Cavill, hands down. So basically, that to me was like the best Tudor marriage, and especially for looking at royal marriages. I had a much harder time looking at standard nobility marriages, trying to find good ones and know whether or not they were really good.
Hmm.
So I left that to Amy.
Okay.
So
So
who?
I find one. Am I doing good first? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I found one that on the face, I don't know, I could be wrong here, but on the face of it, it looks like it was a good and successful marriage. And that was the Lyles. So if you don't know who I'm talking about Arthur Plantagenet, who was the illegitimate son of Edward IV. So, and by all accounts, he was very, very laid back, a very nice person. Like people would go to him for favors. He'd always say yes. He was that kind of person. Um, and he wasn't like disregarded from the royal family. Like he was given positions, so he was made keeper of the royal forests. He was a privy councillor. He was made vice admiral of England. Um, and then he became governor of Calais. So, he was highly respected amongst the royal family and the council, Privy Council. His first wife was Elizabeth Grey. She was the daughter of Edward Grey, first Viscount Lisle.
Mm.
And the widow of Edmund Dudley. If you don't know who Edmund Dudley is, he was one of the men that was first executed when Henry VIII took the throne because Edmund was very involved in people's taxes and money.
Yeah.
Nobody liked him.
He was
So
John Dudley's father.
there we go. So she was the widow of him. So when her father died, she actually got his title. So she became Baroness Lisle in her own right. And when they got married, Arthur Plantagenet actually acquired a lot of land through her. So he was actually doing okay. He wasn't obviously wealthy beyond dreams, but he was doing okay. They had three children. So they had Francis, Elizabeth, and Bridget. So no male heir. But then when Elizabeth died, Arthur then married Honor Grenville. She had previously been married to Sir John Bassett, and she already had 7 kids. So she
Mm.
had Philippa, John, Catherine, George, Mary, Anne, and James. And some listeners may recognize those names. So the first one that I'll mention is John. So that was the second born. And that's because he actually married his stepsister, Frances. So the first daughter of Elizabeth and Arthur.
I was just gonna take a drink, and when you said that, I was like, I can't drink right now. I'd choke if I was drinking.
So they
Yikes.
actually got married to try and, keep both sides of the family together because Honor Grenville was also quite wealthy through her previous marriage to John Bassett. So she had manors, lands, blah, blah. And obviously Arthur had the Viscount Lisle title through Elizabeth and lands and property through her. So they tried to keep everything together, technically. So yes, the
Yeah.
daughter Frances from Elizabeth and the son through Honor, John, they got married. And then the other name that you might recognize is Anne Bassett. And
Yeah.
that's because she was reportedly a mistress of Henry VIII. So,
She also came off
yeah.
as very entitled and spoiled, maybe in some of the letters to her mother.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Mother, you sent me pearls, but you didn't send me enough pearls.
Yep. And there's no rubies. So, yes. So, Arthur was made Viscount in 1523. The next year, he was made Knight of the Garter. So, Henry VIII's on the throne at this point. He still had nothing against him, even though, he is technically the Yorkist line,
Mhm.
illegitimate, but obviously he's off in Calais. So Honor goes with him. They set up their household there, and they've got a servant called John Hussey, and it's thanks to him that we know so much. That man and his correspondence is exceptional, and he also seems to be absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's writing about someone's just got a promotion, somebody needs this gift, somebody needs this, and he also notifies them of things that are going on in the background. So, like, if there's a sneaky claim for some land and things like that, he's there notifying them so they can get in beforehand. Like, Arthur would petition Cromwell for something, and on some occasions it'd work. And Cromwell would fix it for him before whoever was working in the background managed to
Mhm.
get the king's favour. So he basically was like this little spy. But he would say to like Honor, oh, you need to send some quails. So quails were apparently very available in Calais. So they would send quails. Obviously, we know Jane Seymour had a liking for quails. They would send pets over to people, all kinds of things to obviously stay in favour. But their letters to each other, they weren't apart very often. Sometimes Arthur would be recalled to England, for one reason or another. But their letters to each other come across as so affectionate and genuine. And it's just so nice to see because obviously I think we're so used to seeing Tudor marriages that are political and whatever. We don't know if this was a love match. They reportedly knew each other's families, so to speak, but There's nothing to say that it was a love match or if it was political. It could have just been, look, you need a wife, I need a husband.
Yeah.
Let's just get married. Obviously, she had 7 kids to care for. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So, yeah, they do seem to have generally cared about each other. And Arthur also took on the responsibility for her kids. So he was involved in making sure they were okay, because obviously they're in England, they're in Calais. That, their marriages were arranged with the obviously interference of their mother, of course. And the reason I say interference is because Arthur, as I've mentioned, was very, very laid back. He was actually chastised on more than one occasion for letting his wife make decisions. And Cromwell basically said something to him along the lines of, you need to stop doing what your wife tells you to do and basically do what we are telling you to do. So, yeah, I think she was wearing the pants in that relationship.
He
But
was
then
like,
they were very, very sweet. And
yeah.
he did okay out of the dissolution of the monasteries. He didn't get his first choice, but he did okay out of it. And then he was essentially recalled to England in 1540. And he thought it was going to be some kind of promotion or something. And the 19th of May, he was actually arrested.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
The 19th of May will ring bells for any Anne Boleyn fan.
Yeah.
He was actually arrested because they thought that he was working in favour of giving Calais back to the French. And he wasn't. He wasn't involved at all. Like, he was completely loyal. Now, the sad bit is they found no evidence of him being involved. But what they did find is his stepdaughter, Mary, was actually writing to a French noble.
Oh.
And letters about marriage and things like that, which obviously doesn't look great for him. Wasn't him obviously writing the letters, but he wasn't to know what his stepdaughter was doing. So he was put in the Tower, and he sadly essentially stayed there. In the meantime, Honor and I think it was Mary were basically taken out of their house in Calais. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Old Stable Inn or something like that, the house in Calais. And basically put under house arrest in another property. They searched their belongings, they took all their goods, including all the correspondence, which is why we have such an epic collection of what's now called the Lyell letters.
I have them right here. If you're watching the video, you can see my collection.
So sadly, that is the result of them all being in trouble. But the really sad bit is that he languished in the Tower for almost 2 years. And he was actually pardoned. And I don't know if it was the day after, there's different records, or the day after that, he died.
Yeah.
He died still in the tower after just being told, you've been pardoned, we're going to release you. And um, some of the accounts basically say something like he died of joy or or basically too much celebration over the fact that he was going to be released, which is really, really sad. And in the meantime, Honor is also released. She makes her way back to England as the news passes to Calais that her husband is dead.
Oh,
So she arrives in England not even knowing that her husband is dead. She gets told, you're released, your husband's been pardoned, and then gets to England to find, yeah, he got pardoned and died. It's really, really sad. But I do think they had an absolutely loving, genuine relationship.
that is really the part of love and marriages during this time that I think it's hard for us to understand because we live in a world of technology. But imagine no internet, no cell phones,
Yeah.
and word is passed by mouth and by letter. And imagine how it must have been a gut punch for her to come back and find out her husband had died. Like, it's absolutely
Yeah.
tragic.
And hard because your own daughter
Yeah, started
was
this.
writing to a French noble that has probably impacted their decision to imprison him.
Yeah.
But you can't really blame your own daughter, can you? You can't like hold a grudge against your own daughter. But it's just really, really sad. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's also awful that he was literally the son of a king.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You,
he was illegitimate, but he was, whatever I read about him, he just seems like he was everyone's best friend.
right.
He tried to help everyone. He did everyone favors. And look how he was treated in the end. It's just sad that the son of a king was treated like that
hmm
after being loyal for his whole life.
I feel like I have two takeaways from this or things that I want to discuss because first of all, I'm intrigued by the fact that he took the surname Plantagenet and not Fitzroy. Do you know anything? Like, was that, I feel like Fitzroy was a name that had been around a really long time. So I
I
wonder,
think he probably just took the family name and was
yeah,
allowed to.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that intrigues me so much. And then when you talked about his relationship with Honor and how he got scolded for doing what his wife wanted, and I was like, "What's the saying? Happy wife, happy life." He knew
Yeah,
the 16th
he
century.
was on it. Yeah,
He was a man ahead of his time.
yeah,
Oh my gosh! And look where that got him, huh?
I know. I think in a way though, it's probably a good thing that he didn't have any male heirs because we can only imagine what would have happened to them. Yes, he was illegitimate, but still the son of Edward the Fourth.
Right?
People are not just going to forget that, even if he didn't want to play on it or, use it for any advantage for himself, which he actually doesn't appear to have done. He appears to have just worked his way and got on with his life.
Yeah.
But other people are not the same, are they? So there's
No.
always going to be someone that sees their own advantage. So I think it's probably a good thing he did not have male heirs.
Well, that was a good marriage choice for you, for a good
Sad
man.
for
Like,
her.
yeah, I mean, it seems like a good love story. Of course, I
Mhm.
have to say Thomas Seymour and Catherine Parr, I might say it's a good marriage, but I would only say that because of the love letters. Then I don't even know that you can call them love letters, but the letters between them
Yeah.
were indeed loving. You could tell they cared about each other, but
hmm
overall, I think that marriage was a disaster. And somebody made that comment too. I think it was on Instagram. And of course they apologized for saying it, but part of it's true.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a disaster, especially, the fact that she died after childbirth and
Yeah,
then
just because genuinely cared about each other doesn't mean that your marriage is going to be absolutely incredible.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna go now onto my bad, disastrous marriage. And this one, I find this one interesting, and it's William Parr and his first wife. And I'm gonna try her name because there's so many different ways to pronounce her name. It's like Anne Boucher. You whatever. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I think I'm just going to call her Boucher. I don't know. That might not be right either. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. That's a tough one. Okay, so anyway, William Parr and his first wife, Anne. So William Parr obviously was the brother of Catherine Parr. His mother was Maud Parr. His father, after his father died, he was sent to be a ward of Henry VIII. Yeah, Henry VIII. And so he spent a lot of time in Henry VIII's household. His mom had arranged a marriage for her son with Anne. And this was something that she had also put in her will because this was going to be a really good marriage. Anne was the heiress of her father, who I believe was the Earl of Essex. So this would give her would give her son a great title just through marriage. They married young, so young that they didn't live together. More than likely did not consummate the marriage. And Anne clearly wasn't happy with the marriage. And, well, William, I think everybody knows he was kind of a ladies' man, too, and was going around getting his piece here and there. but Anne was not happy, and she decided to take a lover. And they eloped, which essentially would have made her a bigamist at the time because she was already married to William Parr. But if they hadn't consummated it, right, that's kind of like this ambiguous area a little bit. And that was in about 1542 when she married this guy. I think his name was John something. I forgot to write down the name. And she basically started having children by this guy that she's having this affair with and secretly married. And this did nothing but humiliate William Parr to the court. Because they're looking at him going, man, you need to get your wife in check. Clearly, she's out there running around with this other guy and having children. And, we're talking about a succession of sort. What would happen? Are those children his?
No, in the 16th century.
Yeah. And the fact that she was so bold to go have an affair with this other guy and start having children by him just blows my mind. It makes me want to know more about Anne and what she thought gave her the right to behave this way. She's like, well, William's doing it. I'm going to go out and do it too. Yeah, but you can get pregnant. He can't.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously he was humiliated at court. He wanted to fight back. He wanted an annulment. He was like, I got to get out of this marriage because this is not turning out well. He applied to Parliament on the 13th of March, 1543 for legal separation on the grounds of her adultery and to bar her children from inheriting his estates. And on April 17th, 1543, this act was granted. And I'm gonna read this to you. As the bill stated that for the last 2 years, she, Anne, had eloped from her husband, William Lord Parr, and had not in that time ever returned to, nor had any carnal intercourse with him, but had been gotten with child by one of her adulterers, one of them, like she had many, and been delivered of such child, being, as is notoriously known, begotten in adultery and born during the espousals. Between her and Lord Parr by the new law of this realm is inheritable and may pretend to inherit all. And the act therefore declared the said child to be a bastard. Okay, so the one thing that immediately popped out to me, because I know a decent amount about Catherine Parr, is this all happened right before Catherine Parr married Henry VIII. And this kind of blows my mind in a way because I feel like we always talk about the scandal in the Seymour household, right?
Mm.
Whether or not John Seymour, the father, slept with Edward Seymour, his first wife. And I feel like the argument is always, would Henry VIII have married Jane if there was so much scandal
Yeah.
around the household? The consensus is there wasn't an affair between them, but the same thing kind of applies here. Like Henry VIII is looking at marrying Catherine Parr, and yet on the other side, her brother is going through all of this scandal and drama at court with his wife. Now, is that accepted because William Parr is a man? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. He's a man.
I think it's probably accepted because if somebody did that to Henry,
Yeah.
there is no way he is staying in that marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So I think for him, it would be, yeah, Parliament need to approve this because absolutely not. This is not happening.
Yeah.
We are not letting women do this. No. No, thank you.
Yeah. And Parliament's like, okay, all right, that's fine. We'll annul the marriage, but you guys can't get married while one or the other is still alive.
Yeah.
So, of course, this puts Anne into a tricky situation because she had married this guy, John, and had children. So now they're technically not even married. Her children are all bastards. And now she has to wait for William Parr to die before she can move on with her life. And of course, William Parr being a man, that it's all different circumstances for him, right? Yeah. So one of the things that I find interesting is before all of this, of course, William Parr had a mistress. It was okay for him to have a mistress. He began an affair in 1541 with a Dorothy Bray, who was a maid of honor to Catherine Howard. So this kind of like, we're looking at the time frame in Tudor history to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. 2 years later, in 1543, his attentions shifted onto Dorothy's niece. This is sounding like Charles Brandon, isn't it? And his scandalous relationship. So her niece, Elizabeth Brooke. In 1548, William secretly married Elizabeth, but it wasn't legally binding because he couldn't get married while Anne was still alive. This, I believe, is the same Elizabeth Brooke that was married to Thomas Wyatt, the poet, too. And that didn't turn out well for them either. So there's so many interesting connections when you start looking at court and court politics. So 6 months into the marriage, it became public knowledge. And by this time, Edward VI is on the throne. Edward Seymour is Lord Protector. He's pissed off. He's like, how could you do this? It's just recently my brother Thomas did the same thing, secretly married your sister. And now you're running off and you're secretly marrying this Elizabeth Brooke when you know you can't get married. I think it's so interesting. And it shows a lot about the court of Edward VI. And I think Edward Seymour as a leader in that court he had no control over anything. People were running around, shacking up, getting married without permission, doing things behind other people's back. And Edward Seymour is over there going, you guys, seriously.
What's happening?
Why doesn't anybody listen to me?
Yeah. No one would have dared do this under Henry.
Yeah. Yep. So really, long story short, when it comes to these guys, William Parr, I think the marriage with Elizabeth Brooke basically was never considered legal. He later married, what's her name? Helena Snakenborg or something like that. And that was his last marriage. But he did not have very good luck with women when it came to marriage. And I think his court politics, he owed all of his rise to his sister, Catherine Parr. But to me, that is one of the worst marriages is William Parr with Anne and how she was just defiant almost from the start going, nope, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
she's do it, so can I.
Yeah. And she struggled. She and John, her second husband, well, I guess they were adults, so whatever, her lover, They struggled after all of this, trying to make ends meet. And, I kind of feel for her when it comes to that. But yeah, disastrous marriage for sure.
Yeah.
William Parr is the Charles Brandon of the later 16th century.
Henry Cavill Part 2.
Yeah, yeah. No, your bad one to me is like one of my favorite stories of a bad marriage. And I shouldn't say that because it was terrible for the people that were involved in it, but it's just so juicy.
I know. It is bad though.
It is.
Okay, so my bad one is Elizabeth Howard. No, sorry, Elizabeth Stafford and Thomas Howard. So obviously she became Elizabeth Howard.
Yeah.
So she was the eldest daughter of Edward Stafford, third Duke of Buckingham. Um, and obviously Thomas Howard became third Duke of Norfolk. She was only 15 when they got married. Well, around 15. And he was Earl of Surrey at the time. So he was in his late 30s. So, there is quite a big age gap when they get married. And apparently she had earlier been promised in marriage to Ralph Neville, the fourth Earl of Westmoreland. And it seems that her and Ralph had genuinely liked each other. So when the approach was made to Elizabeth's father, he initially tried to get, I'm just going to call him Norfolk because it's easier.
Yeah, yeah.
No, he wasn't Norfolk at this time. He tried to persuade Norfolk to take another one of his daughters, but he said no.
Mhm.
So, which is disastrous for Elizabeth. Obviously, she is a prominent young female at the time, so she comes with a very good dowry. And in return, she's promised a good income. Meant to be 500 marks a year. Apparently, he never paid it. So,
Of course.
naughty Norfolk for that, of course. And she's serving at court. She's obviously been brought up to know what's expected of her as a wife. Norfolk's obviously kept busy during this time. Like, he's a prominent man at court. He's expected to do a lot of things. He's, wherever Henry VIII wants him to be, that's where he is.
Yeah.
And he was, he went to Ireland, things like that. I think we've actually mentioned him being in Ireland in a previous episode. I think it was the one where we discussed Anne Boleyn's possible marriage to
Oh,
Butler.
yes.
I
Yeah.
remember talking about Surrey in that one. So yeah, so he was sent to Ireland. He did not like Ireland. But basically, they're doing what they're doing as a married couple. In 1527, Norfolk takes a mistress, and her name was Elizabeth Holland or Bess Holland, and she was the daughter of their steward. So she is way below, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful manner, it's a fact, she is way below Elizabeth on the social ranks.
Yeah.
But he started living openly with her at Kenninghall, like, as if it didn't matter that his wife is there. So obviously Elizabeth's not very happy with this, and she does start complaining. She calls Bess things like a bored, a drab, which I'm sure you can probably imagine the more modern versions of those words. She says things like she's nothing but the launderer of my nursery, things like that. So,
Yeah.
she's obviously not very happy about this. But her family Bess's family weren't completely just nobodies. Like they were minor gentry. And obviously Bess ends up, as people may know, in Anne Boleyn's household. So, she does make her own way, but obviously there's not a lot of happiness in the Norfolk household at this time. So things do start to go a bit wrong around, well, apart from they've already gone wrong when he brought his mistress home. But
That was surely a
he
bad
was
moment.
loyal to Catherine of Aragon. And obviously, when the divorce is happening, she's not very happy about this. And obviously, Anne Boleyn is her husband's niece. So Elizabeth is secretly writing to Catherine. She is exchanging letters with her like sneakily, like apparently in oranges.
Oh, interesting.
Or through Chapuis. Um, and, she is fully on the side of Catherine, despite the fact that Anne Boleyn is her husband's niece.
Yeah.
And in 1531, she's actually exiled from court because she freely speaks out against Anne and in favour of Catherine.
And she wasn't Henry VIII's sister Mary, so she couldn't get away with it.
Exactly. So obviously she's sent home, and Norfolk at this point decides enough is enough. Like, I am separating from you. I'm not giving up Bess. And both he and Cromwell try to convince her or her brother to basically go and live with your brother, or her brother to ask her to come and live, whichever way it works. But basically, the brother says no. So can't really blame him. Like, you don't want to be interfering in your sister's marriage, really, do you? And that's when she starts writing about abuse. And obviously, I know that we have a very humorous time here. This bit isn't funny, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about it. So she mentions that when she's given birth to her daughter Mary, he pulls her out of bed by her hair. He dragged her through the house. He apparently used a dagger on her. So obviously he didn't full on stab her, but he hurt her, caused injuries with a dagger. And she repeatedly wrote to Cromwell about this. In one letter, she says that he set his women to bind me till blood came out of my fingers' ends, pinnacled me and sat on my breast till I spit blood, and he never punished them. So that is absolutely horrific. But Norfolk just says, this is all a lie. And the lies are increasing daily. It's a difficult position for Cromwell as well, because what does he do? If he interferes, it's not his business. He's not the king. Do you really want to get on the wrong side of Norfolk?
Right.
Probably not. But
We
that's
know.
that's the only thing that he possibly could have done.
Yeah.
So, they're still meant to be living together, but by 1534, Norfolk is, I have had enough. And he forces a separation. So, Elizabeth says that basically he had left court, he'd ridden home in the night, he'd come into her chamber in a foul temper, and he'd locked her in another chamber, taken all her jewels, all her clothes, and following that, she was sent to another property. Obviously, from that, she continued to write to Cromwell for help. Based on what I said earlier, that what her jointure should be, 500 marks, she was given an annual allowance of 200. Like, what? That is insane. Like, she's a duchess.
Yeah.
And yet you've now given her 200 a year for her own household. Like, you've literally kicked her out. She did try and reconcile with him. I don't know why.
Yeah.
genuinely no reason other than probably the expectations of the time, which is really, really sad. And she actually says to Cromwell that I've sent letters to him, I've sent kind letters, and he's just ignored me. And then by the time it gets to 1536, she's had enough. And she writes to Cromwell, and I'll read this bit to you because it is, you can see the defiance at this point. She says, "From this day forward, I will never sue to the king nor to none other to desire my lord, my husband, to take me again." So she's obviously just annoyed now that, I've been writing to you for however long. None of you have helped me. You've let him continue to abuse me. Norfolk obviously takes it in his stride. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't take her back. He doesn't try and convince her like anything other than, yeah, bye, you're out of my life. And
Yeah.
obviously, he continues his relationship with Bess. He does try and persuade her to divorce, but obviously, she's not going to do that.
Mhm.
And he even says to her, "If you will divorce, I will give you back all your jewels and clothes." They're hers anyway.
I was just gonna say, oh, thanks.
Yeah, like giving me my own stuff back. Woo! But she obviously says, no, no, thank you. But yeah, she's I feel really bad for her because you can just see her like in this own household on her own, no support, not completely on her own. She would have had servants, obviously. But even our own brother, like,
Yeah.
is like condemning her. Like she is in the wrong. Her oldest children, they dismiss her and don't
Mhm.
want to know her. So it does make you think, like, was this happening? We don't know. There is no evidence, and I'm not calling her a liar by any means, but it is interesting that her own children reject her. But then I suppose your dad is the Duke of Norfolk. Like, everything that you gain in your life is going to be through him rather than her. So I think it's a difficult position for the kids as well. Now, her brother does eventually make up with her. And he actually sent one of his daughters to live with her, which I think is quite sweet. It's like, a sign that I'm willing to have my daughter live with you. To me, that is an indication that he believes her
Yeah.
because you're not going to send your daughter to live with somebody that tells lies like this. Obviously,
Right.
lying is naughty. It's also a sin. So
Hmm.
I don't think anybody at the Tudor period is going to send their daughter to live with somebody that is technically a liar. But obviously, Norfolk does get his comeuppance. I know. So Norfolk is obviously sent to the Tower. Um, and the interesting thing is, um, when he goes to trial, she gives evidence against him. And I just think that's amazing. Like that to me is just brilliant. So, fair play to her. I think she's gone through all of this, horrible behavior, abuse. But not just that. The other interesting thing is Bess Holland also gives evidence against him.
Yeah.
And that to me is just perfect. It's like the women come together to speak about who he really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Now his son, Surrey, didn't make it out of the tower. He was actually executed, and Norfolk was attainted. Um, Now Henry VIII did give permission for Norfolk's execution to go ahead. But Henry VIII then died. And so he was literally saved by Henry VIII dying. And he did stay in the Tower for the whole of Edward's reign, which, is I'm not going to say anyone deserves that because I don't think they do. But he was obviously pardoned by Mary in
Yeah.
1553. And she actually reversed his attainder as well. So he was restored to his titles. He didn't last long. He died the next year. But Elizabeth outlived him. So she died 4 years after him. But there's just something so nice about the fact that she not only survived him, but that bit about them coming together to give evidence against him must have really sucked for Norfolk.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
imagine you're sitting there, your wife walks in, gives evidence against you, your daughter walks
Mhm.
in, gives evidence against you, and then the woman that caused all of this, well, she didn't cause it, he did because he was the married one, but you catch my drift. She walks in and gives evidence. That must have been heartbreaking for him.
You got
But
it.
I can't
Karma.
say I feel sorry for him at all.
No. Well, look at his daughter Mary too, right? After Henry Fitzroy died, Norfolk like didn't want to help her out, just wanted to marry her off to somebody so he didn't
Yeah.
have to pay. I'm sure that was the point for Mary, was she was like, my dad is terrible, is a terrible
Yeah.
person. Everything mom said was right. And I do want to point out, because many, many years ago, probably 10 years ago, I wrote an article about Elizabeth, and I had found some evidence that when people sometimes described Thomas Howard, they would say he was quick to anger or he was quick with his fists. Like clearly he had a temper. He had a
Yeah.
temper and he wasn't afraid of using violence to get what he wanted. I think it's sometimes it's easy for us to look back at history and even in like a situation like this, want to wonder whether or not Elizabeth, um, the Duchess, was telling the truth. Was she telling the
Yes.
truth, or was she just mad at her husband for taking a
I
mistress?
think she was telling the truth. I think, the fact that her brother reconciled with us and his daughter to live with her, I think everyone realized that she was telling the truth. Now, I suppose the question is, why did no one intervene? But realistically, what can you do?
Right.
Because if you start, the only thing you can do is interview witnesses. If you start interviewing those servants that apparently dragged her out of bed, are they going to admit it? No, they aren't. They are not going to admit injuring a duchess. They're not.
Right. And at
And they
this,
also know that even if they weren't involved, but they saw something or heard something, you're still not going to say anything because you're going to lose your job,
yeah. And a
which
husband,
may not seem a big deal to us,
well,
but if you are dismissed from a duke's household, good luck getting a job.
yeah.
So you can't blame them. And I think that's the only way they could have intervened. Now, why Norfolk didn't just set Bess Holland up in a different property and just live there? I don't know. It's not as if, Elizabeth could have just popped in every day. Like, he had properties all over the place.
He was an asshole. There, I said
He
it.
could have just kept them separate, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you didn't need to treat your wife like that.
It does
But
make
he
you
got his
wonder,
comeuppance.
like,
So.
what makes somebody so angry and miserable like him? Like, how is it he turned out this way? Was he just born this way? These are things that I think about sometimes. Like, what was it about his childhood that made him think this? But also, this was during a time where a husband could beat his wife
Yeah.
legally. And so he was in the right for most of it legally because
Hmm.
that was his wife. He owned her. She was like property to him.
Yeah. And I think some of it's entitlement because, like, look at his son
Yes. A perfect example of
and
entitlement.
why he died. Do you know what I mean? And Norfolk admitted that. He said, "Yeah, I hid what he was doing. I knew it.
Yeah.
Why would it just makes no sense."
Hmm.
So I think some of it's entitlement, but you are right. They did own them.
Yeah.
I think there is a line. Like, I imagine if someone treated Mary Tudor like that wasn't Henry Cavill because he gets away with everything.
Yeah.
There is no way Henry is going to go, yeah, that's your wife, I don't care.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely not. So I think there's always a line, and I think that's what Elizabeth hoped for, that, she's from the nobility. She's not just anyone. So she probably hoped that her status would help her get some kind of intervention, but I think their hands were tied, to be honest.
I Thomas Howard, third Duke of Norfolk, is like one of those villains from history
Yeah,
who you
he's
just,
horrible.
yeah. And to be honest with you, I'm still kind of surprised that Mary the First pardoned him. Wasn't he the one who threatened her and said he'd smash her head in if she didn't agree? And yet she pardons him? Like, he was old at that point. She could have just left him.
Catholic, though.
Was it really worth it? He really deserved anything like, gosh. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that is one of the worst. I think that might be the worst Tudor marriage ever.
Now I've got a question in my head. Who was worse, him or Richard Rich?
Oh, Richard Rich. No doubt. He was a snake. And he's another one that lived to an old age too. I'm like,
Yes.
how did these terrible men who did terrible things get to live such long lives? Like,
I know.
it's not fair.
No,
I'm sure they
no.
both had some redeeming qualities, but I like to think that they didn't. They were just bad, bad men
Yeah,
who were
I'd
very
agree with that.
ambitious. Yeah.
But
Wow.
this has been a really fun episode.
Yes, it has. I think it was interesting to kind of think about this too, looking at the good and the bad.
Yeah,
And it was a lot of fun. And I feel like obviously we should do more episodes like this.
I think there's probably a lot that are not Henry and his six wives, because yeah, we could cover it, but I'd be more interested in looking at others. So if you do have a couple that would fit into good, bad, ugly marriages, I think I added a word, but
Ugly's
let
good.
us know in the comments and we'll do more.
Yes, please do, because I think it's fun to be able to dig a little bit and do some research on something that's different than
And it's
what.
it's nice to have a bit of both, a bit of nice and a bit of bad.
Yeah, I think so too. I also had a lot of fun doing this one and looking at the good and the bad and the ugly. I like that. This is what the title it's gonna be. Marriage Edition, Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Part one, maybe.
Yes. Yes. So get your suggestions in for parts
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, exactly. I had some honorable mentions, but I'm not going to list them because I want to kind of wait and see what people. I
Oh,
don't want to give you the. I don't want to plant the ideas. I want to see what you guys come up with. I know I already posted once on social media about it. Maybe I'll post something else about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and see so that we're not just looking at disastrous marriage ideas. I want to look at the good ones too.
yeah, the
I'd
nice
love it.
ones, the ones where we've spoke about may not have been a love match, but turned into, or love match from the start.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for joining me again for this episode of Off the Record. Your book is out now, so why don't you take a second to plug that too?
It is. It came, well, yeah, it came out early, so they got the stock in, so they released it. So my book on Erasmus is now out. I got my own copy the other day, which was quite exciting. I don't know, it feels like it's that book that it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And now it's here, and it just feels a bit overwhelming still to hold it. I don't know why, because it's my fourth one, but still holding that book is yeah.
I think you said
It's out there.
you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this one, so this one maybe
Mm.
matters a little bit more.
Lots of sleepless nights over this one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've talked about him quite a few times on the podcast too, and
Yeah.
he is such an interesting figure in history. So I will include a link in the show notes so people can buy your book
Thank you.
and see all the hard work that you've put into Erasmus.
He really is fascinating. I think you could write on him for years and years and still never be done. But, word counts exist. So
Maybe you should do a book like the one on Thomas Cromwell that is about his letters and his writings and just compile them all. That should be pretty easy, right?
I don't know. There's only about 82 volumes of his letters.
I was just going to say, how many volumes would you need?
Yeah, might take me a while.
You could do like split up by years. Like you could do time frames. This time frame. Yeah,
Or I could just do Erasmus and Thomas More.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be quite fun. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there we go. Write it down. Nobody steal this. This is Amy's idea. We have evidence.
Technically your idea.
But I gave it to you. It's your idea. I'm not doing anything with it. I can't even finish my own book. Oh, gosh. Well, Amy, thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you again next Sunday.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Off the Record on Tudor's Dynasty and Beyond. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following the podcast. And if you'd like to support the work that goes into researching and creating these episodes, you can find extra content and ways to join the community through Patreon and Substack. And don't forget, you can now comment directly on episodes over on Spotify. I love reading every single one. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you back here for more royal drama and real history.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Two kinds of fishing out here. One for fish, one for your data. Hackers try to hook you, but Cisco Duo keeps every user and device protected. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.